Hey Tina, very welcome to the show, and I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Pim. It's great to be here.
Tina, can you give a little introduction about yourself? What do you do?
I'm a communication and social confidence coach. So I teach on YouTube and I do one on one coaching as well as coursework to help people get their authentic, confident self out there.
All right, cool. And like you're on YouTube, what kind of videos do you make?
I make a lot of videos on social communication, social confidence, things like that.
And what's the work you normally help your clients with?
Normally, so three different categories. One is clear speech, how well you enunciate certain things like that. Number two, verbal fluency, so the process of retrieving memory and being able to express that. And then thirdly, in sales, so a lot of storytelling.
Okay. And what does a training session with you look like?
Well, we're going to do that here today. So we'll see exactly how it looks like. It just
All
depends
right,
on
all
the
right.
person and what their goals are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, yeah, well, we discussed this. I'm going to give a little speech on a random topic, and then you give some analysis of that, and based on that, we'll just work through some exercises to improve my speech.
Sounds great.
All right. Let me fire up the screen for the random topic. That's there. Yeah, can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
All right.
This is great.
Here we go. It'll take 2 minutes. I think I always understand the art of failure in the conceptual way. Like I knew of its importance, like the obstacle is the way stuff that I learned from Stoic philosophy and all, but it stays kind of abstract if you just read about it. If you just read some books about it and discuss it with friends, it stays super abstract and you think that you genuinely understand it, that you have something to say about it, and when you see others failing in some way, then you have this kind of impulse in you that I felt to correct them and like say to people, well, let me reframe that. You didn't feel you had a learning experience. It's not, you don't have to look at it this way. You should look at it through this interpretation. But yeah, that remains kind of abstract, and it will always remain kind of abstract if you were just reading about it. So that's why I like this speaking training so much, because it forces you to fail over and over again, to get to the point where you blank and don't know anything to say anymore, or where you're giving a speech and you think you're not making sense at all anymore. And at that point, when you're kind of failing, it all becomes so important, and there is suddenly this opportunity for you to dive into it and to recover and to actually learn something. And the stuff that I used to think like it's a learning opportunity suddenly starts making sense. And you get to experience what it means to feel and recover from that.
That's so great, Pim. That was good. A round of applause, first of all. That deserved
Thank you so
it.
much.
That deserved it. Wow. Okay. Can I ask you what languages you speak fluently?
Yeah. Dutch is my like main language, and
Right.
I speak English. Well, like I think sufficiently right now. I don't know the exact level, but it's I'm quite comfortable in it right now. And yeah, that's about it. I speak a little bit of German, but very
Okay.
teeny tiny bit.
Okay. And I asked this because you have a particular mouth placement. I don't know what Dutch's mouth placement is, but every language has a resting mouth position. So sometimes, let's just say in French, for example, they tend to bring everything forward. So a lot of the times there's the pursed lips mouth positioning that happens. So it goes here. And so that's where they tend to rest. And I just noticed your mouth positioning. And I don't know how Dutch mouth positioning is, but it tends to sit a little bit more forward than backwards. In American English, mouth positioning, it tends to sit in the middle of the tongue. And I know that might not make sense, but is there any way you can speak Dutch for a second for me? Just so I can see visually.
Ja, ik kan een paar zinnen in het Nederlands zeggen en misschien...
Okay. Can you speak it for 20 seconds on that same category?
Nee, tuurlijk. Om het te laten zien, zal ik even laten zien hoe mijn mond ook wat meer beweegt. Voelt wel heel erg gek om tegen jou te praten, terwijl je geen idee hebt wat ik tegen jou aan het zeggen ben. Maar ja, laten we er maar het beste van hopen. En ik zeg uiteraard alleen maar hele vriendelijke dingen over je. En ik vind het geweldig om hier met je te zijn, dus dat is sowieso al heel erg mooi. En ik hoop dat je ook aan me ziet dat ik het leuk vind.
If you were to feel in your mouth, where does your tongue normally go? Because I hear it going back, but then it also goes very forward.
Ooh, well, where my tongue really goes, I think kind of like if this is the upper side of my mouth, then I think kind of not really backwards, but also I think in the middle somewhere.
Okay.
Or well, just behind my upper teeth.
Right.
It's yeah.
Right. I hear that. Okay. That's very interesting. Okay. Anyway,
because do certain languages come with certain tongue positions,
or
okay,
it does. So because of that, that's why you typically get accents, because it's hard to access certain placements because you're not used to it. Your tongue is not used to it in going certain ways. And even filler words, for example, it's the reason why in English you tend to say or as a filler word, because that's the middle of the tongue. But filler words in Japanese, for example, it's like that's a filler word in Japanese.
Ah, okay.
But that's based on your tongue positioning in that language specifically. So filler words in different language tends to be different for that reason. It's based on your tongue positioning of that language.
Ah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, okay, that's interesting that you have that. Because I hear when you said point, for example, you would say it a little bit point. The emphasis on the p is a lot stronger than American English, let's say, versus point. It's a tap, for example. And so I would focus on what we would do is a quick hack in American English. And I'm a foreigner too. My original language is Japanese, so this is something I had to do and learn, is that we would speak what we call gibberish. And it's just, you're not actually saying anything. However, you do that first, and then you go into taking on the mouth posture of that specific language. So for American English, for example, which is different from British English and Australian English, is that because it sits in the middle, you want to go out, your tongue wants to go everywhere, but it has to always come back to the middle, if that makes sense. Yeah. So is there any way that in the next 20 seconds, if you can just speak gibberish without any thinking about any mouth position, just so you could get used to it, and then we'll try to do the mouth positioning.
Yeah, so it's kind of like shaking your body, but with speech.
But with your mouth, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Stretch your mouth even more. Okay, stop. You tend to go forward a lot, which is very interesting. Okay. Yeah. Can you do it again and try to go back and try to obstruct your mouth a little bit? Go ahead.
Okay, is that tongue position or
tongue position?
Is it like everything focused in the back of your mouth?
Everything here. So even this, you could even do non-vocals.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, pause. How did that feel?
Well, different, but it feels like I'm sticking my tongue in the back of my mouth a bit. Yeah, yeah.
And you're
that
probably
feels
not
just
used
weird.
to that. There's some languages that sits in the back.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, but with Dutch, because I can see it goes forward, and that's why even in English you tend to position your mouth forward.
Yeah.
And so putting it back might be even more foreign to you because it's just not a position that is needed for you.
Yeah. Sure.
Ever. Yeah.
It also sounded like my voice was becoming lower when I was trying to speak more from the back of my.
Yeah, because you're obstructing the sound waves right there when you're doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's interesting because I just did a video on mewing, and I talked about, or I showed a clip when I was a teenager, and I had a lot of obstruction here, the way I spoke, as well as simply, I had a large tonsils, and then I had a tonsillectomy, so they took it out, and that cleared a lot of obstruction in my vocal cords, and my voice was a lot lower and a lot less clear as well.
Yeah.
And then once that was gone and I positioned my mouth a little bit more forward, is that, oh wow, it became a lot more clear simply just doing that. And even after the tonsillectomy, I still had to train myself to sit that forward, because a lot of that obstruction, it causes not only deeper voice, but the vocal clarity becomes a lot less.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're willing to try
Absolutely.
to do the gibberish again, which you're really good at, sit it in the middle of your tongue. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't mean you can't go in other places, but just always concentrate mentally back to right here, the middle of the tongue.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not like sticking your tongue in the middle upper side of your mouth, but just focusing on the middle part of your tongue.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right, I get it.
Okay, stop. You sound more American. You sound more American gibberish, which sounds
so funny.
It sounds crazy, but that's what it sounds like. Okay, great.
Yeah, okay.
So,
It felt like my tongue was trying to slip back to the front part of the tongue.
right, because
the whole
that's what
time.
you're used to. It makes sense. Yeah, so when you're about to speak English, and this is specifically American English again, but when you're about to speak it, a lot of the times I have my clients who are originally native in another language, I have them speak gibberish in American tongue positioning or mouth positioning before they're about to speak English in a presentation or on stage, et cetera, et cetera. And it really helps train their memory to go, oh, this is exactly where we're going to sit. We're not going to go forward or back or what I'm used to. We're going to sit right here. And it's a simple exercise that is silly, but it really does help you on a subconscious level to get to that specific position that language requires.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that was one thing. Good job, Pim. That was great.
Is it like also, is there a way to train that to let that become more of your neutral position, or not per se your neutral position, but a position you can easily go back to?
It's just a matter of practicing that. Yeah, there's no shortcut to that necessarily. If you do, so sometimes people do those gibberish exercises every morning and then have that, and then do it right before, let's say, doing a tongue twister. My YouTube videos, there's a lot of tongue twisters on there that people literally go there every morning to do that. So if you do the gibberish right before the tongue twister training, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah.
I lost you video-wise.
Oh, yeah, the connection might be a bit spotty, but I think it's still there. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Thank goodness.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Nice. Yeah. The video and the audio is both recorded locally at our computer, so it's sent to so the connection doesn't influence the outcome
great.
of the video. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Right.
And this is something I'm also well known for if we want to move on from that, but do you have any questions on that specifically?
On the exercise we just did?
Yeah. Or anything to do with tongue-mouth positioning.
Yeah, well, kind of. It's still like, how would you describe how to use your tongue in that way? Because for me, it feels now that I'm only trying to aim my attention more at the middle part of my tongue, but is it also more trying to force it in a way, or... Yeah, or
right.
Yeah, what would you say?
Right. So the technical way to do this is to practice and physically look at your tongue. And a lot of times people get, let's say, a chopstick or something and feel it out and actually feel out exactly what your tongue positioning is when you say certain letters. If you look up the phonemic chart, and if you want to get really into detail with that, you can look up the phonemic chart, and then you can go through every letter and how it should sound in that language. Every language has that mapped out and charted out, so to speak. So you can go through that, and that's a very technical way to go through that. So if you have major deficiency in that way, you would probably go through that. However, most people, it's overkill. And it's the easiest way to hack. And this is what actors use, and this is the reason why I know this, is that actors use this way to directly hack how to produce, let's say, an Italian accent, is that they train themselves to learn that tongue or mouth positioning of that language.
Yeah,
and that way, you don't have to know every single word or every single letter and how that's supposed to sound, because then it becomes very complicating, because some words, the letter sounds this way, but then when you say it this way, it sounds differently. And then to actually memorize all of those becomes extremely tasking. Yeah. But it's a great way to start to get there right away. And of course, there's going to be nuances. So for example, the letter R, there's specifically an American R sound that we make that other English, even British English, doesn't make the R sound. They don't have that same exact positioning, which is to pull back the tongue versus curling it up. So versus and so it's pulling it back. But that's something that, okay, you would need to know specifically that technique for American English, for example. So there are certain tongue positionings. But if you could just learn the position itself and practice that in gibberish and then being able to speak it, granted that you already know how to speak English, then you're already going to be 80% of the way there. And I'm all about hacks to get you 80% of the way, because why waste time, years and years of going through speech pathology to get every single meticulous position when you can get 80% of the way there? And then you can, icing on the cake when you could just get it precise. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, cool. Nice. Let's do the next exercise.
Okay, which by the way, I do want to compliment. I noticed that when you speak, you will take the time to pause and think. And that's a skill most people they can't grasp. It's hard. It's really hard. It's a challenging thing to be able to say, ooh, I don't know what to say. Don't fill up the time. Let me think about this. And then say what you need to say.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely, and
people would use fillers.
Brings so, it brings so much more clarity and calmness into your speech. Like an analogy from the ultra speaking stuff, I'm learning this. Yeah. They have this analogy that like when you're speaking, you have this like snow globe that's shaking, and snow is going all around. And then you take a pause and the snow is settling back again, and you have this clarity again, and then you can start again.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. You have that. You clearly trained yourself to do that, and it shows.
Thanks.
Good job.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. That being said, and this is a technique that is overall something that you can do outside of speaking, is my verbal fluency that I tend to teach people of how to retrieve certain words or categories or stories that you have in your head and being able to express that in that fluent process, so you don't have to keep pausing, or if for some reason that one word isn't coming to you and you're just stuck there. That's something I really help in, and that's verbal fluency. We tend to focus on phonemic fluency, which is related to your frontal lobe, your executive functioning. And that goes into your impulse control, your reading, your ability to take in knowledge. It's pretty much everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. And so we tend to focus on the phonemic part. But that being said, the semantic part is also very good, because that relates to the specific facts and people and categories. So if people who are, what's that game where those trivia people who are really awesome at knowing random facts, those people are really strong in their semantic fluency. And that's because they're training their anterior lobes. And so that's where that comes from. Yeah. So even though this is a speaking, or the result is with speaking, it actually is training your brain itself, and it bleeds into other categories of your life. So oftentimes athletes will work on their verbal fluency because it actually affects the way they do their sports, and they become that much better because they're able to problem solve in their head a lot faster than they used to. So it's a really cool hack. That being said, the way we can do phonemic exercise is the FAS test. And it's called a test, but it's really just an exercise where you go through one letter F, and you try to say as many words as you possibly can with a word starting with F. And then we measure that. And we want to get it above at least 18, because below that, we're really running into a dangerous zone. And it might be that you need medical advice or need to see a specific professional in order to see if there's not something else going on, because again, it goes back to your executive functioning, and that could mean various different things. And a lot of people with ADHD have a lower verbal fluency score, so that's just something to put out there and look into. I'm not diagnosing anybody. That's just the facts of the FAS exercise. So if you want to do the FAS exercise with me, no pressure. After I said all of that. And just as a caveat, this is made for English fluent speakers. So I always want to say that when people freak out and they're like, oh my goodness. Don't worry. If you're up for that, I have a timer here.
Yeah, for the letter F. Okay.
And just as a simple rule, we don't have to get into it too much, but just avoid names. Avoid.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right, ready? For the letter F. 3, 2, 1.
Friends, fire, flight, forever, finish, fuck, flowers, forwards, for, floor, from, frequency, fret house, fret, falling, foul, force.
Okay. All right, pause. Okay, maybe let's just do the F and then we'll get into this. So, nouns only. So I had to get rid of the F word.
Yeah.
and from, but very good, very good. This is pretty good because, okay, so total you did have 17, but English is your second language, plus we didn't do A or S. That being said, that was actually pretty good, given that I just put a tremendous amount of pressure on you. So what's important is that you're supposed to be in an environment without pressure. And you did that under pressure, so that was really good. So this is something that you can do every morning and just test yourself on noun categories. And good way to step up from that, which you didn't do, which is great, is to avoid clustering. And what clustering means is that our brain tends to put things into categories to organize our thoughts, which makes sense. So typically somebody might go and say, oh, okay, let's say F word, fish, fry, because in their head, they associate fish with frying it. And so they tend to cluster that, okay, fish, fry, and then fan, and they think about a kitchen. And now they're trying to name everything in a kitchen that starts with the letter F. And then that's how they're able to quick hack the test.
Yeah.
So I don't think you were doing that, which is actually great because it forces your brain to actually not thinking, be able to access different categories. And I see this a lot when, especially somebody comes to me where they're great in their personal life in terms of talking to people, they're able to socialize. But let's say as soon as they step into their professional life or at work, all of a sudden they have to speak differently. They have to use different words. So let's say you're used to cursing and you're not used to using actual words to explain certain things. Then that's a good way to access that professional box category because you use different vocabularies than when you do perhaps with your friends. And so people tend to get stuck in different environments depending on where they're at. And so if you know specifically that I'm not really fluent in this specific environment, I would do the FAS test and pretend that you're talking with somebody in that environment. So it forces you to access words that you normally wouldn't use because you're just not interacting in that environment. And that's going to help you a lot when you're in that environment itself.
Yeah, so by doing that exercise, you're training to access it in those moments.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so would you also like why for the letter F, or can you just do it for every letter?
Technically you can, and I say the FAS because that's the one that was researched and specifically for the English category, and so I can say 18. There's CLS, they're just common letters in the English language specifically for you to be able to, meaning you should be able to hit 18 pretty easily with FAS. But I can't necessarily say that for other letters. So it's just a good marker, but you do want to do different letters. It definitely don't just stick to FAS because then you're just training yourself to retrieve F, A, and S.
Yeah.
But yeah, use different letters. However, that's a good way to test if you're hitting that threshold of at least above 18 and see where you're at.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think that's about it. Do you have one little exercise that you can give as a kind of homework that I can practice myself?
Well, definitely the gibberish, and it feels silly, but it'll do so much for you. And then concentrating at the middle of your tongue, the verbal fluency, the FAS, and you could do any category. If you want, you could do semantic exercises, and that's category oriented exercises. So let's say school, so school materials, and if that's the category, then you just start to drill off schools. So that's a way you can train your semantic.
All right. Okay, well, awesome. And thank you so much for taking this time and for being here. It was really nice to have these new insights and a lot of things I didn't really know anything about. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. You're amazing. I cannot wait to see you even explode better because you're already at that level. You're already good and you already have a lot going on for you. I said in the past, you're really good at your nonverbals. So your nonverbal language, and that already will take you so far. So good on you.
Oh, well, nice. Thank you so much. Oh, one last question.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
Oh, Of course. So you can go on YouTube and search up Lady Tina. That'll be an easy way. Or you can just go to tinaleader, LEDER.com.
All right. Okay, well, thank you and have a great day.
You too. Thank you.